Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto suchedoye olahari samya samputoshe. Wu shang shen shen wei miao fa. Bai qian wan jie nan zao yu. Wo jin jian wan de shou chi. Yuan jie ru lai zhen shi yi. The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in hundreds of thousands of millions of eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dhamma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. This is the 21st of June. We are one day short of the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year. And as a result, if I could encourage everybody in the front of the hall to turn your heads around and look at the dragon shadows on the back, and also at the windows as the setting sun comes through. This is the best night of the year, short of tomorrow night, to catch those colored dragon shadows as they filter through our space. This is the day when the daylight hours are at their longest, the night hours are at their shortest. 22nd is the solstice, summer solstice, and then there's the winter solstice on December 22nd. So this is also the cusp, the last day of Gemini heading towards Cancer. So this is one of those joints in space measured from our perspective, measured from our human perspective. Although there's no actual line there, it's one of those places where something ends and something begins. So it's a place that we measure the rest of our time from, and it's a human convention. We don't really need, space doesn't need those lines, but we impose order on what is essentially a seamless, no seam, no joint, seamless sphere. So this is one of those times. So special night. I'd like to begin our lecture tonight the way we usually do, which is with the title of the text, chanting in Chinese, so you can follow the Chinese there, reading the English letters, and we'll invoke the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Avatamsaka assembly to draw near. Here we go. Namo Tafang Guang Fo Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Bo Pu Sa Namo Tafang Guang Fo Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Bo Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Bo Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Bo Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Bo Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fo 华严经，华严海会佛菩萨，南无大方。华严经，华严海会佛菩萨。Right. In our text, we're on page 60 and 61, and I want to express gratitude to Jin Fan Sure, who stood in for us last week. Both myself and Jin Chuan Sure were in Atlanta, Georgia, and we were in Bethesda, Maryland, with a group of Buddhists, first in a summer camp and then at Avatamsaka Vihara, our monastery in Bethesda, and having a wonderful time, getting reacquainted with our friends in the East Coast, and also meeting some new friends in Atlanta. So Jin Fancher was here to take us through the text. And we are just at the very end. There's a total of 5 stanzas left in the 5th ground before we launch into the 6th ground. And that's a major milestone in our progress through this very long text. And I personally am looking forward to the challenge of explaining the 6th ground, which is something I haven't done before, as far as maybe never in a series of lifetimes. And I don't know that for a fact, but it feels to me like breaking fresh ground. And I don't know how familiar people are with the progress of the Mahayana Bodhisattva, this figure in our version of Buddhism. He or she follows the paramitas. That's this particular course of practices, of behaviors, trainings that somebody undergoes when they're following the Bodhisattva path. And the paramitas have 2 versions. One is 1 to 6, the other is 1 to 10. And the 10 grounds, our chapter here that we're studying, also follows 10, and they correspond. So the first ground corresponds to the first paramita, which is giving. The second ground to the second paramita, which is precepts, etc., virtue. So 5th ground, the one we're finishing now, is samadhi, meditation. And we've said often that our bodhisattva here is the master of meditative stillness. This person really knows all about the mind when it's still and calm. And the next one is the tricky one. The next one is, tricky is not the right word, the next one is the complex and subtle one, because it goes to prajna, wisdom. The 6th step of the paramitas is prajna, wisdom. So it's the 6th ground coming up. And prajna is, some people say, the crown of the bodhisattva path. But the difficulty is that it transforms ordinary consciousness, ordinary intelligence, into another phase of the mind. So this is where you've heard of Prajna Paramita literature, the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, the great Mahaprajna Sutra. What's that like? The Heart Sutra is the place where it says, Shariputra, there is no ignorance. There's no ending of ignorance. There is no sight, no sound, no smell, no taste, no object of touch, no dharmas. Clearly there are, but from the bodhisattva's place of prajna, there isn't. So both is and is not together are wiped out. It does away with duality. What is our consciousness based on? Knowing the difference between up and down, left and right and wrong, day and night, male and female, good and bad. Dualities. They balance each other, and that's how we imagine if we tried to get through an hour of our day without having the standard of right and wrong, up and down, empty and full. When you get to prajna wisdom, the mind that distinguishes all of those has already been transformed. So it's not that the bodhisattva on the 6th step doesn't know the difference. She can move back into duality. But from this new perspective of wisdom, they form one seamless whole. So that's, as I say, subtle, complex, wonderful. There's a flavor there that doesn't exist anywhere else. But trying to explain it, trying to go through the text is a real challenge. So that's our challenge. That's what we're setting for ourselves coming up. And fasten your seatbelts. Our airplane is leaving the runway, heading off into space. So heading off into the air. That's a preview of coming attractions coming. I'm looking forward to it. And I hope all of you get plenty of sleep beforehand, because a typical response to hearing prajna dharma is the following. That's fascinating. People fall asleep. Why? Not because they're sleepy necessarily. It's too much for the mind to take. It's a response to that kind of complexity is shut down. And I've learned over the years not to react, not to take it personally. It's not that I'm putting people to sleep. And even when people are like this, part of us is hearing it. But that's the conscious mind's response to being overwhelmed when being told that both right and wrong don't exist. Neither right and wrong exist. Right is right, wrong is wrong, but right is also wrong, and wrong is also right. And go, I can't handle that. Seriously, you freak out, frankly. Or you just dismiss it, Mostly people walk away. But we're coming there, and I've explained Mahayana texts now for many decades, and I have never tried to explain the Heart Sutra or the Diamond Sutra. Never done it, simply because it requires another set of skills and listening, another level. For example, they say, from our Mahayana perspective, that you look at the Buddha's entire lecture career, right? The Buddha explained Dharma for, they say, 49 years. And 21 of those years was spent explaining prajna. 20, almost half. But he didn't start it until late in the career. Why? His disciples weren't ready. Their meditation skills were not up to it yet. They couldn't handle it. But when they were ready, and he explained it, they're going, yeah, that's right. That's what I actually experience. That's what I see when I meditate. That's what I myself know what you're talking about. Because why? That's my experience. Then we're ready for prajna, right? So that's why I haven't explained it for a while. I don't know if I'm up to it. Question?
Does that mean you should start meditating more to get ready for the
Absolutely, it means you should start meditating more. About 3 p.m. is a good time to start. We'll lecture at 7:30, so about 4.5 hours of stillness should get us ready. Either that or lots of coffee. So we're on 3rd stanza here on page 60. Now, this is what Jinfan Shi lectured on last week, but I want to just kind of take a running start and get through it here. So if anybody would prefer a chair and would feel more comfortable in a chair, please do not feel that you need to sit on the floor because everybody else is. So, we have nice, good chairs to sit on, and they're, especially if your body is not used to sitting on the floor, it can be kind of a challenge. So we're happy to make chairs available. And by the way, I want to mention to David that you don't have to sit in the bleachers. Those are the cheap. You enjoy the balcony. Those are the cheaper seats. You get to fly balls when they come out. So okay, but we'd be happy to move you closer. Roberto's just right here. Sam.
I recently
Okay. Okay. Sam said he recently heard that the Heart Sutra is not from China, not from India, but it was from China instead. Okay. There are lots of opinions. And scholars distinguish themselves from other scholars by coming out with new theories, right? It's a way to get hired. It's a way to get tenure once you're hired. Now, that's kind of a snarky comment on my part. And there is a scholar whom we revere and admire because she speaks Sogdian, she reads Uyghur, she knows all of the Silk Road languages. And she has some brand new theories about the source of the Heart Sutra. She wrote a text on it. It's a good book, there's value there. But my professional comment as a fellow colleague is, so to speak. You know, it's like for her to be right, that means several million Buddhist monastics, male and female, East and West, are wrong. So, she's, she argues well, she has her data. To say, it's the main question that she brings up is called Apocrypha. Apocrypha means Buddha never said it, right? If you look at biblical scholarship, there are certain texts called the Apocrypha, meaning a body of text, like the Gospel of Thomas. The Essene Gospels are supposed to be apocryphal. They exist, they have their following, they were found at a certain place, they can be carbon dated, but there's a school that says, often for political reasons, these are false. Jesus never spoke them, right? Buddha's texts pretty much are free of that challenge of Apocrypha within each and every school. If you ask the conservative Theravada tradition, all the Mahayana texts are apocryphal. They were all written by people. The Buddha never spoke them. So, from that point of view, all right, fine, omitofo, if there's value in your being right for you, let me listen to your tape recording, from the Buddha, pulls the rug out from under 2,500 years of tradition, of very intelligent people whose practice actually sees through the mere straight line historical lineage and says, no, this came from the nature. If the Buddha didn't speak it, somebody with wisdom, who was liberated spoke it. Okay, that's good. So I want to, despite my raspberry, I want to honor the scholastic enterprise and the life of the mind, but I don't take it all that seriously. It doesn't threaten the millions of people who have looked at the Heart Sutra and gone, whoa, this is a distillation of the Buddha's prajna wisdom, which is realized only through a still mind that takes duality and draws a circle around it, and then goes beyond it. So, I was Dr. Edvard Konza's chauffeur for the years that he lived in Berkeley. Dr. Konza is the premier translator out of Sanskrit of the Prajnaparamita literature. Dr. Konza is before the scholar we're talking about. When she was still in diapers, Edward Konza was the prajna expert. And he has another theory, again, and Konza is really loves, talk about stirring the pot, He says that all of the prajna literature comes from what are called mother lists. He says Buddhism entirely comes from the 2 of these, the 3 of those, the 4 of those, the 6 of those, the 7 of those, the 9 of those, the 10, the 11, the 12, etc. And, a perfect example is 6 paramitas, what I just mentioned. That those lists like those were circulating around monasteries in India. And they were the real deal. That, for example, if you meditate to a certain point, your heartbeat changes, right? And it's the first dhyana. And in that first dhyana, your heart really changes, and then your circulation changes. The second dhyana, your breathing stops, and you breathe through your pores, you know. So those things really happen. So Konza said, after enough people had these experiences, they became lists, and they predate the, quote, Buddha Dharma. The Buddha experienced them all, took them, systematized them, taught them through sutras when the time was right, when people were able to do it. And that's where all the Buddha Dharma comes from, are these mother lists, okay? So the Heart Sutra is this big, the Diamond Sutra is that big, the Humane King Who Protects the Country, Prajna Sutra, is that big. Then there's the gatherings of the Mahaprajna Paramita. There's the 5,000 lines, 8,000 lines, the 100,000 lines, 500,000 lines. That's what Konza translated the whole thing. And he said the Heart Sutra is a version of it. So that's interesting, and it makes sense. But to say it didn't exist in India, it was written in China, takes all of Konza's research and dumps it, And so she's not the first, and she won't be the last to come up with an outrageous theory about that. I don't mean to denigrate it. I don't speak Sogdian. I don't read Uyghur. She does. She really does. Wonderful stuff. But, Ami Tofu. So, okay. Page 60, please. 60页. Paragraph 3, stanza 3. Okay, I'll give you a line, you give it back. 持者如此难生的，持者如此难生的，供养乃有佛。Let's see, sorry. 供乃有佛一听法，如意妙宝莫真经，所有善根转明镜。Okay, can we read together in unison? Here we go. When the wise one dwells upon this ground of difficult conquest, he makes offerings to Nayutas of Buddhas and listens to their Dharma. Just as when a wondrous jewel is used to polish gold, all of his good roots become brighter and more pure. All right. This is a refrain. We're in the concluding stanzas, the very last part of this long text. So we have conclusions. It's the summary. And the last couple lines of each one of the grounds looks at the ground itself in the context of the whole thing. So it's kind of like saying, we're going to travel from here to Minneapolis. We've come as far as Reno. We have a long way to go, but we've come as far as Reno. In the context of the whole, we're here. That's what this chapter, these stanzas do. When the wise one, the bodhisattva, dwells, dwell is not the verb we're using anymore, stays, stops, passes through, When he is here, when she is here, on this ground of difficult conquest, Nanshurs, makes offerings to Nayo for Nayutas of Buddhas. Nayuta is a Sanskrit number like million, gazillion, trillion. He makes offerings to trillions of Buddhas, and he also, Tingfa, listens to what they say. All right. Let's take a break there, take a look here. this image is really central to the Avatamsaka and the description of the Bodhisattva. What is it? He's making offerings. I totally didn't expect this. I visited my friends Paul and Robin down in Santa Cruz, in Bonnie Doon, and Robin is a sculptor. She was walking on the streets of Santa Cruz in the boardwalk, and there on the sidewalk she saw two stone Buddha heads cut off at the neck with, headdresses, and one had 3 faces and all. And she was like, "Ugh, stop." And she said, "I'm not taking another step until I rescue this off the sidewalk." And there were 2 of them, and they weighed, 400 pounds each. They're this big, made of stone. And she did. She brought them up to her house. There's some peddler, some guy was not selling, hammered steel bracelets. He was selling Buddha heads that had been cut off from some poor statue somewhere, some images. And they looked like they looked Indonesian perhaps, or maybe Cambodian. So she brought them there and didn't know what to call them. I looked at them, and immediately they said to me, "Donor." Why? They're not Buddhas. They're not bodhisattvas. They're, judging by the expression and by the adornments, by the way they're sculpted, they're an image of a layperson who probably, if we saw the body that it came from, would be doing this, right? Would be holding something up. And I've been to enough temples or monasteries or shrines where they make an offering to the Buddha, and they make images, Buddha's images, they make bodhisattvas images, they make the fierce protectors images, the four holy kings, like that. And occasionally they make the 18 arhats images in the boxes here, all those different ones. Then often there will be an image like at the end or in the corners, which is plainer but is also adorned, and it's the donors of the monastery, the people who gave the money so that the place could be built. Often they were memorialized in a statue. So they didn't stop with just the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and protectors. They would make a special image of the donors. That's what these are. And when I suggested that to Paul and Robin, they went, "Oh yeah, that's really what it looks like." Because it's not a sacred image that you bow to and make offerings to. That image is making offering. It's just, it looks more, the features look worldly instead of, the way Buddhas and Bodhisattvas look. So, that's an example of what we have here, which is what? The Bodhisattva makes offerings to how many Buddhas? Not 1, not 10, not 1,000, not 1,000,000, but nayutas, meaning uncountable numbers. Nayuta is like number beyond counting. Makes offerings to all those many Buddhas, and after making the offering, sticks around and listens to what the Buddha has to say, meaning listen to the Dharma in exchange. So this is a major moment in our Mahayana texts. One of the things that bodhisattvas do is make offerings. And we just one of our Dharma friends here in Berkeley is Gaetano Maeda, and Tano is a Buddhist film curator, and he goes around the world finding new Buddhist films and adding them to the International Buddhist Film Festival, which began here in town and has now gone around the world. And it's quite a wonderful not-for-profit enterprise. Just telling the larger Buddhist story using film. So here at the monastery, we got a chance to preview one of the new films coming out of Burma called The Golden Kingdom. And it's about Buddhism as it's practiced in the Golden Triangle area where they're growing the opium, right? So it's between Burma, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, up there. And that's neither here nor there, but the point is, it's a form of Buddhism that has been practiced in Burma, Myanmar, Burma, for as long as Buddhism's been there, which is like the 11th century. And it involves the monks living purely forbidden from planting crops. They can't dig the ground, receiving offerings from local families. And the story is about these 4 young monks. The oldest one is like 12. And they receive a food basket every day from a local villager who gets up, grows the rice with his water buffalo, and then cooks it, puts it in a tiffin box, and carries it to the monastery. And the film is very beautiful in its slow depiction of the man coming down the dirt road, carrying the silver bucket with the food in it, and the monks are there waiting to chant over it, and the camera lovingly follows this offering. In this case, it's what the monks live on. In our case, we're doing exactly the same thing. Exactly. People they cooked the food at home and carried it to the monastery today so we could eat. So here we are watching on the film this ageless, timeless interaction between donors and the Sangha, between the givers and the receivers. And there it was on the film. We did the very same thing today. So that's one kind of giving that we depend on entirely to eat. We don't cook for ourselves here either. We could, but at the moment we don't. So that's one kind. Here's another kind of giving. When we say gong, nai o fo, yi ting pa, what does it mean? Our Buddha, went out for his food every day. Went walking with his bowl, with his monks, found food, sat down, ate it, and then spoke Dharma. That's one kind. But there's another kind implied here. What do you suppose the Bodhisattva is making offerings of to the Nayofo, to the Nayutas of Buddhas? Well, one example would be the Pumanpin. Today, at 9 o'clock in the morning, this is Saturday, people today recited the Universal Door chapter, Pumanpin of the Lotus Sutra. And one of the features of that chapter is an offering. Guanyin Bodhisattva makes the offering. Who's that? Guanyin Bodhisattva is like the big one, Chapter is about Guanyin. What is she doing? She's making an offering. She offers a necklace to the Buddha. So the offering goes on regardless of your status. It's not that, only beginners or lay people make the offering. Guanyin Bodhisattva makes an offering to the Buddha, to 2 Buddhas, to Shakyamuni Buddha and to the Buddha, the stupa, many jewels. So, how interesting, right? So this activity of making offerings is something really big, central, and important. Just came back from Australia not long ago, and in the place where I live, there's a little altar. One Buddha, it's just a table. It's about as big as this table right here in front of me. And in order to, I go by it when I come out of my room and go down to the to the door and to the main living space. And one monk, one altar, one Buddha, it was really joyful. So the first thing every morning was to get some fresh water in a little tiny teacup, dump out yesterday's water and put it on the plants, and take fresh water in front of the Buddha, and then go get a soda cracker, like a saltine, because I'm not cooking either, but I have some crackers. I would get a fresh saltine, put it in front of the Buddha, light a stick of incense and bow, and just reconnect with that sense of, right, here's your altar, keep it going, keep the offerings fresh, one cracker, and watch the spiders come in and build their houses on the altar and kind of say, hey, can you move away, we'll put you over here, okay, it's nicer. I'm sure the spider was going, hey man, let me make my offering to the Buddha. No, I had those thoughts. I didn't. Am I like violating the spider's right? Liberals, So don't be so sensitive. So invite the spider somewhere else. Anyway, seeing a cobweb on the Buddha, I couldn't get used to. I moved the spiders out of the way. Anyway, but making that offering was really wonderful every day. And just something that's simple and clean, and so one of the interesting things to notice about the offerings that the bodhisattvas make is they involve no suffering. They are typically food, water, lamps or candles, fruit, flowers, incense. They're pretty much everything from nature. So there's no killing, there's no harming going on, and anybody can do it. That's one of the best things. So if you can offer the keys to a BMW or the deed to a Cessna plane, or a Learjet, go ahead. Offer the deed to a Learjet to the Sangha so we can travel around the world. We'll take it. We won't. But you need to supply the fuel and a mechanic as well. We need that. But more likely is you're going to offer some flowers from your garden, right? Anybody can. Anybody can make offerings. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to be a king or rich or a person of great means. So that's another attractive aspect of these offerings, is anybody can. So from the simple monk offering a tiny bowl of water in front of the Buddha, to Guanyin Bodhisattva offering this priceless necklace of pearls, it's all considered gongyang. All right, now that being said, the chapter 40 of the Avatamsaka, our very own sutra, says, of all the kinds of offering, giving of Dharma is the best kind. If you can give Dharma, you've given the best and the rarest thing. Because stuff that comes from outside has value, but it doesn't require any real change. It's just transferring nice things from you to the Buddha. When you offer Dharma, and then in that sutra it explains what that means, you're actually changing. You have to change. You have to be different. And say that's the kind of offering the Buddha values the most, is when you actually you change your behavior. That's the best. So that's the thing about offerings, So when I drew near Gold Mountain Monastery as a graduate student back in the 70s, I didn't get the hang of making offerings. I could never quite get it right. I remember the first time I tried to make an offering to the monastery, I brought in a squash, it's a big, like, what are you laughing at? Come on, I was a grad student. It was a giant squash, and unfortunately, I'd already cut away a third of it, so it was half eaten. And so I brought it in, and one of the monks was like, there's a lot of blessings involved in making an offering, but traditionally it's don't eat it first, give it to the Buddha before you eat it, And I'm going, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I see. Who knew, right? So then I remember making an offering to the teacher is a big deal. If you can actually make an offering to a good and wise advisor, that's the way Guan Yin offers to the Buddha, it's a big deal. Nothing I gave to Shifu did he accept. Nothing. He wouldn't accept anything I offered. There was always something wrong with the offerings that I made. And it's not that he was being picky, not that. It's just, it was really clear that my heart was not really in it. I didn't understand how to make offerings, and he would teach me. And I remember some of the things I offered was stuff he would just, and it wasn't so simple. And when I looked at it, it was because my attitude, I was not truly making an offering. I was trying to please him. It wasn't, I didn't get it. And he was showing me that by rejecting everything that I brought in. It was stuff, a book or a pen or something like that. And that's what I had. I was a grad student on a fellowship. I had no money. Never worked. It never worked. And then when I was ready to leave home, I had one thing that, I was not going to give Shifu my Nikermat camera. That was my most valuable thing. He didn't want a camera. But I had a brass bell that I had brought back from Japan. When I'd been traveling in '69, I'd gone to an antique shop in Kyoto and found this beautiful, ancient ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling brass bell. And I really liked it, and it had a beautiful sound. And so I thought, somebody told me, when you leave home, you should probably make an offering to your teacher. And I thought, okay, the only thing I have that, is vaguely okay, would be this bell. But Shifu always refuses everything I ever try to give him, so he won't take this. But I brought it in, and when I asked if I could leave home, I said, Shifu, I said, I'd like to offer this bell. And he went, that's very nice, he said. He said, in the future, he said, people who make offerings of bells have resonant voices in the future, he said. Set it down, like that. He took it, Shifu actually took something I gave him. So, that's the... And then he went on to say, now if you go ahead and cultivate the jeweled bell hand and eye, he said, you'll have a really resonant voice. I said, Shifu, what's that? He said, never mind, it's not time. He said, so anyway, this thing about making offerings is a big deal. It's a big deal. And I had no idea that there was such an important Dharma message, and that this is a path to cultivate, is the giving of offering. It's Samantabhadra's vow number 3, Guang Xiu Gong Yang. Extensively practice offerings. So, okay. Gong Nayo Fo Yi Ting Fa. So wherever Buddhas appear, this Bodhisattva shows up there, makes offerings to them, and then here's the Dharma in response. Ru yi miao bao mo zhen jin, just like wondrous jewels rub gold, polish gold. What's that about? Was anybody into to gems as a kid? One. Only one?
My friend used to have
That's what I, did you? Yeah, what is it? Describe it. A rock tumbler.
It was very noisy.
Yeah, it's
Actually, I had a couple of gym experiences when I was a kid, but I had a rock tumbler.
a rock tumbler.
It makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And it was so noisy that my mother made me get an extension cord and put it on the dock. So we have a house, there's a porch, and then you go down the stairs and there's a dock on the lake. And I had to put the rock tumbler.
So it wouldn't like dominate the house. So why does it make so much noise?
Because all of the rubbing against each other. And
Okay.
there's sand and water in there, and as they rub against each other,
Okay. A rock tumbler. It's a container on a axle with a motor that turns, and the purpose of it is to polish stones. So what kind of stones would you polish with it?
semi-precious stones, like
Agates, amethyst.
agates and rhododendronite, I think is one that we have in
Uh-huh.
North Carolina.
Carnelian.
A little bit of carnelian, a little bit of malachite and lapis.
Okay, so semi-precious stones. You put them into this container, and it's on a motor that turns. Then you put in the grinding stuff, which is sand and water. And then you turn it on, and as it turns, the rough edges of the stones get polished. And I remember hearing how super noisy it was. And it's that kind of fingers, nails on a blackboard sound, too. You know. So that's what's happening here. Only the polisher is hard stones, like what? 入一妙宝, wondrous gems which polish gold. Gold is relatively soft, and if you rub it with something really, really hard, it becomes burnished, I think. I'm assuming. You'd have to, I'm sure it's a technique. And it was talked about in the fifth ground, because that's where the Bodhisattva is a gemsmith. Right? That's one of the qualities of the Gongqiao Ming that we talked about 2 weeks ago. The arts and craft skill of gem polishing and jewelry making is one of the traditional skills that a bodhisattva would have. So, just the way miaobao, wondrous gems, are used to polish gold. Zhenjin, it says true gold, it just means gold. It's how you take the impurities out of gold. Another way is through the fire, right? So far, this is ground number 5. So far, we've had fire smelting gold. Just the way gold goes through the fire, the bodhisattva goes through his or her tests and becomes more and more pure, free of impurities. This is a way to purify the bodhisattva's nature. Why? Where is he heading? Buddhahood. But he's only on the 5th ground, which is, mind you, that's like way up there, but still has a ways to go. So, 入意妙宝莫真经所有善根转明净. All of the bodhisattva's 善根, wholesome qualities, 转, progressively, 明, bright, 净, pure. So, in all of the things that this bodhisattva does in the 5th ground, they make him or her more pure, more wise, more compassionate. They polish him or her. Kind of like Shifu refusing all my offerings, right? I would take stuff to the monastery and then carry it back home after the teacher had gone, you know. And what was going on? First of all, he didn't want the stuff. You know, I was a poor grad student, and he wouldn't have wanted it if I was a millionaire. But he was not rejecting the stuff, he was rejecting my ego that wanted to score points by giving stuff to the teacher. Because then I would have owned him, right? Oh, Sherpa took my thing, so, Sherpa likes it. Sherpa likes me, right? That's the way the mind works. And I'm sure I was trying to score points with the teacher, and he saw that and just went, so that I wouldn't think that he wasn't giving me any strokes whatsoever. But then, when I really wanted to leave home and had a thing that I actually liked, and I would have been happy to carry that bell back home, it's like, so the teacher knows exactly how and when to teach. Very interesting. All right, got that all? Let's go down to the next one. 譬如心绪在虚空，风力所持无损动，亦如莲花不着水，如是大事行于世。Just as the stars and planets out in empty space are held by the power of wind, cannot be harmed or moved, and also as the lotus bloom does not adhere to the water, the great Lord in that way courses through the world. I would change a bunch of these words if I were translating it. But let's get to the issues behind the words. Here's an analogy. What's it like? What's the bodhisattva like? The bodhisattva is like 心绪在虚空, like a constellation, like a star cluster. In our camp in Georgia last week, we had a visit from an astronomer who brought his telescope. This astronomer is from Taida, originally from Taiwan National University, but he got his astronomy degree from Yale. He's a really highly trained astronomer, and he brought his very nifty telescope and equipment and tracking stuff tied into software apps that are very available for free online for your phone and pad, and which control the telescope. So he had this amazing. He said that number one is the best software is called Sky Safari. It's free. So if you go to Sky Safari and learn how to use it, you say, what's that bright thing up there? You hold it up, and if it's calibrated and you have Wi-Fi, the telescope goes like that. And it's free, and he was like telling us all this. Unfortunately, it was a cloudy night. We didn't get to look through his telescope. But he taught us a lot using descriptions. So this man was so excited about his hobby. He was, every time he looked through these tubes with glass, he got, thrilled at what he was seeing. And astronomy is a lot mathematics. Our best way of telling time, until only recently, was called sidereal time. What is sidereal time? It's stars, right? The movement of stars and planets was the most precise way to tell time. You could tell it very precisely. Now, what do we do now? Now it's shining light into crystals. Crystal quartz. The striations in quartz are another natural way to tell time. I don't know how it's done. I can visualize sidereal time. I don't know how. So the National Observatory is in Denver, I believe, where you get our national clock. We have a national clock. And did you know that you can go online and get the precise time? If you type in, exact time, it'll take you to a clock that's administered out of Denver, Colorado. And it's done now through quartz crystal divisions. I'm not sure how it's done. Anyway, sidereal time was how it used to be done. And so when you look up, first of all, the astronomer in Georgia had the right place to do it. Unfortunately, this time of year, there's lots of thunderstorms, and that's what we ran into. When you live outside of town, you don't have to go too far, go to the city of 10,000 Buddhas, and go out at night. And you will be smacked in the eye by the lights in the sky. Right? It's only recently, since we've lit up our world with electric lights, that people have not seen all these bright lights in the sky when they go outside. It's called the bowl of the heavens, right? And really quickly, if you can see them, and that's why in Ukiah, their stars are so close, they feel like they're going to land on your head. What you do pretty quickly is you start to pick out patterns, right? We are the pattern-finding animal. And you go, that looks like I've seen that before. That moves that way. Let's see, it's this time of year, so it's going to go here, And what we're looking at is from our perspective on a turning orb. We're on a planet that's moving, right? It's moving this way and that way at the same time, and it's also going around. So it's like that. So all these different motions. And we're looking out at something that we perceive to be like a sphere. We're moving around this thing called the bowl of the heavens, right? So it's not flat, it's not a screen, it's like that, and we're turning inside it as we go, like that. So we pick out these patterns and we give them names. Oh, there's Draco, the goose. Oh, there's Ursa Major, the big bear. Whoa, everything seems to be rolling around that one. That's the pole star, that's Polaris. And pointing at the pole star is the Big Dipper. There it is, So we do this. We give them names. And people connected the patterns in the heavens that came around year after year after year with human behavior. And what was born? Astrology was born. We said, every time that shows up in the sky, this kind of person behaves this way. Right? And then when that shows up, that kind of person behaves differently. And over the repetitions from year after year, century after century, we developed this science of correlation. As above, so below. So that's, in other words, my point is to say that the planets and the stars used to be really big in our world. Less so because you can defeat night with a flick of a switch. Electric light goes on, night goes away. And all that learning, all that knowledge goes away too. Because you don't need it. So, 譬如星序在虚空, just like stars and the planets out in space, there is no full space, empty space, out in space. 风力所持无损动 are held in place by the power of wind, and they're never set in disarray. They never fall apart. Okay, what is that? What is 风力? Power of the wind. Okay. If somebody came up with a translation, gravity, I would give you 5 points. Okay, what is the power of wind? Okay. If you look at Buddhist cosmology, the Buddha, in fact in our sutra, the Buddha spent a lot of time talking about the way the world is built. And he says there's this polar mountain, Mount Sumeru, in the middle, right? There's a sun, there's a moon, there's the 4 continents. We're in the southern one, southern Jambudvipa. and there's the ocean of fragrant water, and there's the iron ring circling mountains, and the whole thing is held up by what's called Fenglun, a wind wheel. And when I saw that, I thought, duh, atmosphere and gravity, wind. So, was the Buddha seeing it the way it is? Yeah. When they describe it as the wheel of wind, it's like maybe they're talking about the very same thing that astronomers use to describe what's really going on. So could this be here? So gravity or atmosphere holds up the stars without, and they never fall apart. They never like get lost or wander off, right? Furthermore, it's like a lotus flower, which doesn't adhere to the water. Flowers don't stick to the water. It's that the idea is that it's like the lotus flower that rises above the water, right? They're usually on stalks. There's lotuses and there's lilies. Lilies rest on the water. Lotuses rise up. 如是大事行于世. This is how the great Lord, Lord is one of those power words. We need to watch out for that one. This is how the master, the great hero, the knight, this is how the bodhisattva travels in the world. Okay? Got that? You've all been so attentive, including our four-legged friend down here who's being so polite. I'll forgive you for yawning just a minute ago. I didn't take it personally. It's all right. He actually gives me the impression he's very interested in what's going on. So, do you have a song sheet in front of you? Did you all get songbooks? You don't, it's all right. Don't worry about it. I just want to break up the energy here a little bit. Jinchuan Sher and I had a very interesting experience. It was hilarious. Teaching in Georgia, which I'll share with you in a minute. Page 14. Buddha named eternal light, made vows to save creation. He made a land where suffering's gone, a place of liberation. So use his his vows and be reborn. Lotus flowers delight him. You simply keep his name in mind. Never stop reciting. Our land is a place of pain, struggle and contention. Find a world of utmost bliss. First set your intention. Those men and women, rich or poor, rebirth not delighting, apply themselves with a single mind. Never stop reciting. Praise the Buddha's compassionate vows, melodies unending. My body lives in the world of woe. My heart is world transcending. With bodhisattvas joyfully, soon be reuniting, till I reach Amitabha's land. I'll never stop reciting till I reach Amitabha's land. I'll never stop reciting. Namo Amida Buddha, 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 Namo Amida. I'll never stop reciting. Name that tune. Come on, all you Christian hymn lovers. No. How are we supposed to, like charades? You're supposed to. It's called How Can I Keep From Singing? How can I keep from singing? Right? Which is a wonderful Christian hymn. So we won't subtract points from Sam's team for being wrong, but we won't give you points either. All right. Okay, let's do, should we do one more? Here? We have 2 to go. We're getting right close to number 6, which we have to. Okay, down at the bottom. Page 60? Page 60, 61? Oh, one more song? No, one more stanza. This kind of song. This song. Oh, that's what you're talking about. You ready? Here we go. 诸此多作都率王，能遂易道诸邪见。所修诸善为佛智，愿得实力救众生。You want to read with me? Let's read together. Dwelling here, most become Tushita heaven kings, able to quell heterodox paths and all deviant views. All the good he cultivates is for the Buddha's wisdom, for he wishes to obtain the 10 powers and rescue living beings. Okay, so another refrain verse. This is, what we discovered is that these bodhisattvas all come back in different roles. They're not card-carrying bodhisattvas. Hello, I'm a bodhisattva. You can tell by my headdress or something. No. They appear in different places throughout the 10 Dharma realms. In this case, Tushita heaven gods who are born in that particular heaven, by and large, are 5th stage bodhisattvas. Interesting, huh? And Nang Cui Yi Dao Zhu Xie Jian. They, when they're there, they can explain the fallacies, what's wrong with lots of other religious, spiritual, theoretical positions. For example, if somebody said, oh, in order to appease our God, we have to cut the heart out of a young woman. She has to be 12 years old and look this way, and we'll cut her heart out and offer it up to the God and appease him. You know, apparently there were some schools of religious thought that did that in a ritual way. And this bodhisattva is able to say, well, all religions begin as stories. And there is more than one. There are multiple stories. So gods require prophets before you know what they're like. So any god whose story involves taking the life of your precious daughter probably is a story that you'd be better off not listening to. Something like that. You know, that's 翠外道, right? 翠道主邪见. Say, this is, I'll tell you a story that's full of compassion. You pick which you prefer. You know. So he's able to do that. And then this lightning bolt comes out of the sky. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Bring in the girls. Give her. Nope. 所修诸善为佛智. All of the good that this bodhisattva cultivates, he transfers towards Buddhahood. He wants to use that goodness to benefit others, to become a Buddha. That's what it means, right? He transfers for his future accomplishment of wisdom. 愿得实力救众生. He says, I want to have the 10 powers of the Buddha and the Bodhisattva so I can help rescue beings from suffering. What is that? We've been over them a lot. There's this list. Here's one of Kwanzaa's 10, list of 10, his mother lists. That is to say, when you have these 10 abilities that are inside that get uncovered and revealed through your practice, you are able to teach in a whole new way because you know what people are thinking. You know what they're able to understand. You see in their behavior exactly where they're going to wind up. So that's some of the powers. And as a result, if it's your mom that you want to wake up, you say just the right word, not too much, not too little. She listens to you and changes. Right? She changes. That's what the 10 powers allow you to do, among other things, certainly. So, this is the conclusion, and the bodhisattva of the 5th stage can do those things, is able to do that. Now that we've come, we have 2 more stanzas to go. Now that we've come halfway through the 10 grounds, we're able to see these patterns emerge and realize that this is it's a document, but it's very much like a university course. If you don't know the numbers, you can't do calculus. So you learn 0 up to 9. Oh, somebody says, wow, add them together. Subtract one from the other. Multiply them, divide them. Look what they can do, you know. Then you say, how about geometry? What about algebra? And you learn that, and then you gradually become mathematically skilled. And by the time you're in 5th grade, you can do a lot. Right? Same thing. You can see the progress of the bodhisattva through the 10 grounds. And he's halfway done now. So his abilities are, her abilities are different than before. Okay, we're not done. There's 2 more stanzas before we're done, but you get the feeling, you know, we're almost there. Anybody have any questions about the 10 grounds or about the sutra? Or this was the one where he enters samadhi and gets all these abilities, the worldly teachings, right? The expedient skills. This is where the bodhisattva sings, uses music, uses all kinds of talents and arts and crafts to teach. If not, then we're going to transfer merit, because tonight both Jinchuan Shi and Angela are going to tell us a little more about our university plans and how a liberal arts education is how we're interpreting Shifu's Dharma for the West at this time. Okay, now dedication of merit happens here. Like the Bodhisattva sends all of the good that he cultivates to benefit living beings, we too can send all of our goodness out for the Buddha's wisdom, or however you'd like. You remember 2 weeks ago I mentioned that our friend Mr. Yo Guozhen in Taiwan was there in Taipei Fajie and collapsed on the floor during Shifu's 19th observance of his passing, and suffered a serious heart attack. And he has been in a coma all this time. He woke up 2 days ago, came out of his coma. And we don't know the extent of any damage, but he'll be coming out of ICU. He's been in there all this time. So I'm sure any transference would be valuable to make sure that he finds his way back to we want to find out where he's been all this time. Where was he traveling? So please, if you have nowhere else to transfer your merit, transfer to Mr. Yo and all the people like him who are moving through realms of awareness, consciousness, and other places. So. Here we go. Yes. Oh, Doug Powers' dad, Max Powers, peacefully left his body a week ago, and we went up and chanted for him, and Doug has been caregiver now all these years, and Max was as as close to a bodhisattva as you'll find in terms of how he lived his life. So his Paiwei is already here in our rebirth hall. But there's another place too. Well, Max is definitely a Christian. His spirit went beyond any kind of limits or identity. So I'm sure that would be a wonderful place to transfer merit as well. So. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, take their minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, may all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, can we invite our DRBU staff, Angela Justice and Jin Chuanshu, you're part of this presentation? Okay. All right, so we're going to run the screen down, turn the projector on, and and it was revealed, the true prophet. Neng cui yi dao ji xie jian.
So we'll just pause for a second and I'll kind of introduce it and then we'll talk about it.
I don't know. Santa Claus? Papa Smurf?
Excellent. So good evening, everyone. Hello. A few weeks ago, I came before you to kind of introduce our new program at DRBU and announce that we have this 4-year undergraduate program in liberal arts and a 2-year program, Master of Arts in Buddhist Classics. And after that presentation, I had a few people come to me to ask more about the principles behind the program and what makes it unique. And so we have been working on a project, the web team and I. Many of you know Dr. Martin Verhoeven. He's our Dean of Academics. Most of us know him as Marty. He has a Dharma talk here every Friday night. And so we invited him to talk about the principles behind the program and why a liberal arts education is valuable in today's world. So I'm going to turn it over to Marty.
And liberal means free. Okay, so free in what way? It meant not to free you to follow your desires per se, but it meant the freedom to be able to channel your desires into something that was constructive. So freedom is, in the sense, the goal of the liberal education. It's to free up all the sensibilities that a person has to make a good life. A good life not in the sense of a good income per se, but a life that is devoted to goodness, that is sustained by goodness, and that is producing goodness not only for yourself but others. That was liberal. So the liberal, to be free, meant to know the truth sets you free. So the knowledge then was knowledge of all the important areas of life that you had to have, at least to have a discourse and to make informed choices in policies of government, economics, running your family, your religious choices, human psychology, philosophy, literature, the arts, and music. This was to make you a free person. And this is something that was expressed very well by John Dewey. If you hope to have a democratic society, you have to have people whose democracy includes a level of learning that allows them to participate in all aspects of their society with information. And this is a life learning goal. It's not just, I get an education, I got my education. No, it's a continuing growth. So the first reason for that is it keeps you from being narrow in your focus and narrow in your sensibilities, and therefore it's broad. It's also broad because it provides a foundation that allows you to move in a number of areas and shift your emphasis and even your career throughout life. So the idea of coming in and specializing at an undergraduate level is a relatively new phenomena, and the drawbacks of it are widespread. First of all, the key years that you need to develop that broad base, the foundational, is being limited now. They can't have a rich life. They're narrowing in technology, they're narrowed down in science, or even they're narrowed down in humanities, but they can't have a discourse. The modern world is so complex right now that if you don't have a basic vocabulary and literacy in science, in art, in literature, in politics, and economics, and religion, I say this with all due respect, you are disadvantaged. And the quality of life for yourself personally and for your country and for the world suffers disproportionately. Moreover, in a more profound sense, if you don't have people who are broad-based and free in that way, it makes them susceptible to governments and relationships where they are dependent and passive, and in a sense, under authoritarian structures. So the key thing now that you see worldwide is people trying to cast off the yokes of various kinds of fundamentalist authoritarian structures, either in marriages or in religion or in policies and everything. The heart for that liberation is not the gun, it's the book. It is not power of force, but power of knowledge. That's what makes people free. So if the world is going to move into the 21st century, it is ironically not by specialization, but by generalization that we create a base from which people can actually truly participate in the fullness of life and make a difference.
Yes, thank you. I like this video very much, because I feel like Dr. Verhoeven, Marty, is really addressing the question of what it means to prepare for a future in an ever-changing world. And we're looking for the best way to prepare our youth so that they can handle the technological, the political changes that are coming at them faster than they ever have before. And at DRBU, we prepare them by teaching them to become powerful communicators and to become experienced with the human condition through learning about it through classics that have addressed the human condition for over 3,000 years. So let's turn to Marty again and have him talk about the value of Eastern and Western classics.
It has an enduring quality, so that students who go through a classical training are getting what I would call source or foundational knowledge. Moreover, they're not just getting knowledge, they're getting access to knowledge. They're learning how to access. If they have this, then whatever the changing trends of content, curriculum comes up, they will be able to dive into that and sift through it. If you just give them a current curriculum of content without those deeper foundational tools, then they're learning only in one situation. It's not something that carries over. The other reason is that it's classical not because it's honored abstractly. It's classical because it does address continuing problems or issues in the human condition in a way that remains or persists. So you could say it's both timely in that way and timeless. And the advantage of our curriculum here will be to, I think for the first time, combine Eastern and Western classicals rather than just saying it's Eastern or Western. And that's going to be much more suited to people working in a global situation, working across cultures, and more importantly, and this comes from Sherpa's vision, to test and challenge your attachments and assumptions, both personally and culturally, so that you're thinking outside of a box. Now, one box is your culture, but another box is your own ego and personality. And so by working in classics across traditions, what we do is to tease people out of their little narrow ways of looking at things. And by doing this, all kinds of fresh perspectives and possibilities open up that weren't there before. So there's many reasons for not just the classical, but the classical of Eastern and Western together.
Okay, wonderful. So this week, I had an interesting experience. Wayne Chen and I, Wayne is the director of admissions at DRBU, we met with a reporter, and she came to talk to us about the university and to hear more about the degree program. And what was really interesting was she asked a lot of questions, questions that many of us would know the answer to very easily, but for her, it was only her second time at the City of 10,000 Buddhas and on campus. And she was very curious about, thank you for the lights. She was very curious about the experience that a person would have on campus at DRBU. And she was under the impression that because we were alongside one of the largest Buddhist monasteries in the United States, that we were offering a religious or a theological degree. And that is not the case. We are a liberal arts college, and we want to prepare our students for a world where they can engage in academics and civil service in a variety of outcomes. And our mission, actually stated, is that we're dedicated to liberal education in the broad Buddhist tradition, a tradition characterized by knowledge in arts and sciences, self-cultivation, and the pursuit of wisdom. DRBU aims at educating the whole person and thus strives to nurture individuals who see learning as a lifelong endeavor in the pursuit of knowledge, self-understanding, and the creative and beneficial application of that learning to every sphere of life. So she was quite surprised when we talked about DRBU as an academic program that was text-focused. And she was really delighted when, as we explained the program to her, she realized how committed as an institution we are to both education and translation. And yeah, it was quite a moment. So one of the questions that came up was, she said, well, what do you mean by the pursuit of wisdom? How can you help students develop their wisdom? And I wished I had Marty with me right there, because I have another video with Marty talking about developing inherent wisdom in Shifu's vision.
The concept of inherent wisdom is actually from the Master himself, and he started the class called Developing Inherent Wisdom. But it has a deep philosophical grounding lies really at the heart of Buddhism. And what it's saying is replicating the Buddha's statement upon his enlightenment. All beings have this enlightened nature. All can realize this enlightened state. That being the case, then the approach to learning has to be from the inside out and not just from the outside in. Because the goal then is to catalyze or to open up that potential in each student or each person. Therefore, the content and the conveyance of that content has to be done in such a way that it actually engages, or as the Master would say, it develops or unleashes that inherent capacity to know and to know deeply. So here then, developing inherent wisdom means you're teaching people not what to think, but how to think. The method was dialogical. It was to question and to question and question. We'd often ask Shifu a question thinking, oh, we're being impolite. And he would say, no, your problem is you're not asking enough. And you're not asking deeply enough. So we were pushed to ask again and again and again. And if you look at the early teachings of the Buddha, almost all of them are dialogues. They're not discourses. They're dialogues of question and answer between the student and the teacher. So the developing inherent wisdom is not only deeply Buddhist, intrinsically Buddhist, but it has probably the best Western parallel. Socrates was dialogues. Plato said all learning is remembering. So again, you have these parallels. So the blending of Eastern and Western, not just text but methodologies, should produce people that when they graduate feel confident without being arrogant, feel curious, and yet have methods to pursue that curiosity that keep them within humane and moral dimensions that not only develop themselves, but also include the development of their communities and the entire world. So this is really where the developing inherent wisdom comes from, and why the knowledge practice thing is so important to integrate.
Thank you. One of the questions she asked was, do you have to be Buddhist to attend? Do you have to participate in this tradition to attend? And we said, no, you don't have to be Buddhist to attend. You have to have an interest in inquiry, in learning, in being devoted to wanting to give something to the greater good, to make a contribution to the world. Those are the type of students that we're looking for, who love history, who love philosophy, who love psychology, students who love to write and read and want to do something good. So, Jean Schwancher, do you want to add anything? Okay. Okay, thank you. So we're still in the process of accepting applications. So if you know anybody who might be interested and still looking for a college to attend in the fall, we'll be accepting applications until July 15th. So we encourage them to put them in soon. And if you have any questions, you can come to me after the lecture And you can also visit us online at drbu.org/admissions. Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. And so we've heard now twice from Angela about the university and about our admissions to it. And we may invite her back yet another time so that people see we're serious about this. We really are. This is not just another event, that will be on a weekend and it's over. This is, we're invested in bringing Master Hua's vision for teaching the Dharma here to this country through education. And Shifu began this quest in 1976, and we're getting close. We're really getting close. So, the other thing to say is, if you have not been involved in higher education and curriculum development, this may not make, it may not seem like such a big deal. Why are we saying East-West classics? Why are we saying humanities, liberal arts, broad-based? Why are we saying developing inherent wisdom? What's the big deal? Well, we turned in our statement, our application, our proposal to WASC, to the agency that credits all the schools. Every university in the Western states goes through WASC. And these are folks who live and breathe curriculum, administration, and they're looking at it from the point of view of the students often. One part of them is consumer protection. They want the university to be there after 4 years so that if you say you're starting, that you'll get your degree and all. But the folks who do this day in and day out see a lot of repetition. There's the same kind of schools come through and they get evaluated. Some get rejected, some get reviewed, some get challenged to change, and then they get passed. When we turned in our proposal, something different happened. They got excited. And Franklin, who we all know, who is kind of spearheading a lot of this development, ran into the head of WASC at a conference a month ago. And what's his name? Professor, don't know. He said, "My God," he says, we want to see you more. What was the outcome of our inspection?" And Franklin said, "I think it was 2 years, and then as soon as we're ready, we'll bring." He said, "No, don't wait." He said, "We want to get you through as soon as we can." He said, "As soon as you're ready, call us." He said, "You shouldn't have to wait longer than a year. We're all talking about what you proposed because, frankly, it's very challenging and very exciting and could be revolutionary." So the thrust of virtue-based education, which takes us through our elementary and our middle school, is the heart of programs being developed at major universities in their business schools. Business as if people mattered. In their law schools, right? Humane law versus corporate law, or law that is only designed to serve the marketplace. So the principles that Shifu outlined that have now been taken into a curriculum that speaks to the 21st century is got the educators excited about the possibilities. What did Shifu say? He said, if education, 兴盛, if education flourishes in the West, Buddhism will flourish. If education fails to renew itself, to reinvent itself from inside out, then Buddhism will take longer, right? 教育兴盛，佛教兴盛；教育衰败，佛教就慢慢来. You know, that's the way he said it. So we now have it on paper, and you've seen the faces, and here's Angela telling you there's an application form and a date. You know, it's really happening. We're actually doing it now, and we're doing it at a level that professional educators are sitting up and paying attention and going, this is new, this is different, this is exciting. So it's a real thing, you know, and this is what we're doing. Alan? You get the mic? People know. Oops, you know what? We did it again. Now.
I just want to echo Shiva just mentioned, and also Angela mentioned, and Marty, because I started my career in New York City, so I have been a traffic engineer or planner for like 15 years.
Closer, Alan.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I started my career in New York City, so I got my degree from the engineering school. So I have been doing the traffic transportation planning engineering. And then when I started my career, I see in the big high-rise New York City buildings and then working on something. So I found out that in the company, they will be kind of two kinds of the people or the staff or employee. One kind of the group, they will be kind of labeled as engineers or worker. So they're going to work very, very hard. See at the corner, a cubicle, probably for the rest of their life. So the other kind of people, they see so-called manager quality. So for those people, they will be able to advance to the higher level. So they will be able to manage the project, they will be able to manage the staff, they will be able to do something other than just do the engineering work. Because right now we are in the very high pace technology society. People will be thinking that, okay, if I want to survive, I need to go to the engineering school, I need to do the programming, I need to learn this, I need to do that. But if you don't know how to think, and then, wow, that would be very difficult to adapt to this kind of high-paced society. So for example, when they look at the quality from a staff, they usually want to know, can this person kind of develop his ideas and how to actualize his idea, how to implement his ideas, and then make things doable and practical. So all those high-rank officers or in the high rank in the company, they all want to see the quality from the staff. But this program we just heard actually combine the kind of Eastern classic and Western classic, try to kind of develop or unleash your quality from inside. So that's exactly those kind of high rank officers will be looking at each of the new staff. So it's not this person will do the C++, then there may be another C++, always coming out. But those are just skills you can learn. But those things may not sustain your life. So I see the full possibility. Because right now, I already went through all the education. Otherwise, I would like to register again to be a student.
It's not too late.
Well.
And you know what's ahead? They said the average Fortune 500 CEO salary was 300 times higher than the entry-level salary.
Yeah.
That's ahead. Oh boy.
So don't see that.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So for example, it's not like, okay, this school provide the liberal arts, so it's kind of philosophy. You probably, after you graduate from college, you won't be able to get your job. I totally don't think so. If you can deliver your message in such way, you will get a job at anywhere. And you can be at any companies. But you have that skill, you will be able to think. And then that's critical. It's not like how to get this programming, this debugging, and try to get this out by the very short deadline. But in addition to that, you will have something that's completely different and very, very unique. Yeah.
Hear, hear. Well said. Interesting? Yeah. You want to?
I can present a different perspective on the same point, which was so I was explaining this program to a young man, and actually much of what I explained was what Marty was saying on the video. And at the end of the conversation, because he was asked very practical questions, what Alan was trying to answer, but at the very end he asked me a question which I thought he really got the spirit. He basically asked a question. He said, "I have a really good friend in high school. He's actually my best friend, and he really took care of me when I left. You know, he treated me out. He did all these things, but you know, there's one thing I always wanted to explain to him, and that's the principle of filiality. And the reason is because he really hates his mom. He says he wants his mom to die, and I don't know how to explain filiality to him. And so I remember listening to that, and I said, you know what? I have to say, if you were to do something like this kind of program, you might actually learn that principle. And you might be able to learn it in a way to explain it to someone in a modern context. And so I think that's, in addition to what Alan was saying, is something that's very meaningful, is that as a young person or anybody, you're learning principles about life, for instance, like filiality, as it's manifested in various cultures and various times, but from the source texts, and then interacting with teachers like Professor Verhoeven, like you see the various people in our community who actually take filiality very seriously and can explain it to modern times. And so I think that's something that's a balance. You have the balance of what Alan was saying in terms of somebody who is able to interact in society, but then on the human side of things, about actually, and I was saying, if is that worth, you know, a couple years of your life? You're actually able to turn your best friend's heart to something wholesome like that. So I thought, yeah, that's pretty good.
All right. This week will be the first week of summer. Solstice is tomorrow night. Or is it tonight? It's the 21st, tonight. Tomorrow, so when we cross over to 12:01, we're on to the cross the cusp into the first day of summer. Longest day of the year. And we will be heading for Oregon and then the Guanyin session that follows. So that's ahead of us. Any other activities this week we need to talk about? Not, I think not. We're good. Yes, Jin? We have to do the quick answer. Which ground of the 10 grounds is appropriate for a layperson to study and practice? Well, you can't generalize. I mean, that's a general question. I'll give you a general answer. All of them, depending on where you are. The key word is appropriate. You know, if you are, for example, the first ground, the ground of happiness, go for it. You know, why not be happy? Well, many reasons why not. It's hard to be happy, and happiness it comes, what do they say? Trouble comes too easy. Let's see. Pleasure comes too easy, trouble leaves too slow, says Joni Mitchell. So happiness is hard to sustain, not to say we're supposed to be happy and hold on to it, but the bodhisattva is happy and holds on to it. Why? Go investigate. As a layperson, as a monk, go investigate. If the key word in the question is layperson, there's no distinction. You don't know who's the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva could be a layman, laywoman, monk, nun, you know. So, first thing to do, what I would recommend is read them. Find out, answer it for yourself by reading it. Don't take it from me, take it from the sutra. That's why we have it in English, you know. So read it, and if you find places that just kind of leap out at you, maybe that's the one for you. For example, in the first ground, the 5 kinds of fearlessness, the 5 kinds of courage, that part always stayed with me. It was like, oh, how come the Bodhisattva is happy? Fear is gone. In the second ground is where you get the 10 evils and the 10 good deeds. That's incredible. If you kill a lot, there's 2 kinds of retribution. 1, your life is short. 2, you're sick a lot. If you bestow life, you get 2 kinds of retribution. 1, you live a long time and you're healthy. It's like, bong, okay, I like that. So go there, try that one. And so no magic pill, read them, figure out which one responds, and then put that into practice. The 10 grounds are chock full of methods. They're full of techniques and dharmas and, ways to put them into practice that change your life entirely. That's why this chapter is so memorable, so powerful. Which one? Oh, yes. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we have a Guqin class. If anybody has wanted to play the Chinese 7-string zither, lute, harp, there's a chance tomorrow. David Wong is coming. David lives in San Francisco, Chinatown. He's a talented, experienced, kind-hearted teacher who's very skillful at it. And if you have ever thought you might want to play the Guqin, it's the oldest instrument still in continuous play in the world. It's considered a UNESCO, United Nations heritage instrument. So it's been in play since Confucius's time and before then, continually. So come tomorrow at 1 o'clock and David will tell you what it's like. You'll get to look at one, listen to one, touch it, what's it like, and discuss how the class might be formed. We don't have a clear idea of when we're going to meet. It depends on who comes and what the time is. So that's tomorrow. Thanks. All right. So if it's the path, advance. If it's not the path, retreat. If it's, let's see, 师道之间，非道在退，在善而从，不善而改. Pick out what's good, follow it. What's not so good, change inside. See you next week. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Fa